Okay, I'm going to show you how to knit the owl out of my book. Alright. And you can do this on any 24 peg loom, okay? Any 24 peg loom. Alright. So, I'm using a 3/8 inch gauge 24 peg loom. You can use any 24 peg loom you want, okay? So here's how this goes. We're starting with the tail, and it says to do your multicolored brown first if you're going to do the brown version, okay? Now, what it says to do is to E-wrap cast on 12 pegs. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Then what it says to do is it says to knit 1 per 1 all the way across. So you're doing a 1 by 1 ribbing on the tail. Knit 1 per 1 all the way across. And this is going to be a 2-row repeat for a total of 10 rows. If you want a longer tail, you can do a longer tail. It's entirely up to you. Okay, I did 1 extra. It's okay if you accidentally cast on 13. You just go with it, okay? So you just want to keep up with your rib stitch. In the book it says if you did your 12, you should have ended with a purl. If you end with a purl, you start with a purl. Okay, you're just trying to keep up with exactly what you are doing as a rib stitch. So if you did 12, it's purl 1, knit 1. If you accidentally did the 13, it's okay. You just follow what you're doing, okay? You just want to stick with what columns knit and what columns purl, alright? You just go with it. There's nothing exact. It's not going to kill me to be off by 1 peg, okay? That doesn't change it up that much. Alright, so you're going to do this 1 by 1 rib stitch for a total of 10 rows, okay? So what you want to do is you want to pause the video, get your 1 by 1 rib stitching over 12 pegs over 10 rows, and then when we come back, we'll be ready to start row 11, okay? So pause the video and get that much done, and we will start on row 11. Okay, I have done my 10 rows for my tail, and if you had done accidentally 13, what you'll want to do at this point is you'll want to just go ahead and you'll want to just move that over. Alright? So, where we are at is you want to change to your light brown and you're going to cast on, alright? So you're going to E-wrap cast on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, so you're going to E-wrap cast on the 12. Alright, you're not going to cut your original stitching, alright? If you are doing the bicolor, alright? So you're going to attach the new color and you're going to E-wrap cast on your 12 empty pegs. Alright, but what you're going to do is on row 12, it says you're going to pick up your multicolored brown and you're going to do the tail area. You're going to knit one, purl one 6 times over there. And this is color chunking. And then you're going to pick up your light brown, you're going to twist it, and you're going to pick up your light brown and you're going to knit one, purl one 5 times. Okay, I'll show you what that means. Alright, but because I'm doing one color, when I get over here, I am going to be keeping up with it, and so it's going to be a purl one, knit one. Alright, to get myself back. Alright, so I'm going to be adjusting this a little for a solid color. It's really not that difficult to do the adjustment. Alright, so you just continue on your path. Not a big deal. Okay. And in fact, you could have just gone ahead and done your rib stitching over and then E-wrap cast it on. Okay. So, let me explain how to do this next section. Now, if you're doing it with the alternate color, it will most likely be the opposite of what I'm doing, just so you know. It'll be over here rather than over here. Alright, but if you're doing this for the first time, you may just want to start with a solid color. It is kind of a complicated pattern. Okay, so you'll notice it says to knit one, purl one 5 times, so that's 10 pegs. Alright, and then it says to knit one, wrap and turn. So what you're doing is you're creating a seed stitch for the bottom and the front area. Okay, and so this is a bottom area here. So you're doing a short row technique while using a seed stitch. Okay, and it's fun to keep up with, I promise you. But hopefully I wrote it down properly. Okay? But it should work the same way no matter which way you're working. You're just going to be ending up on the opposite side of me. Okay. Here's my last one. I knit one. And that's what it says. It says to knit one, purl one 5 times, which is 10 pegs. Then you're going to knit one for peg 11, and then you're going to wrap and turn. Okay, and that is row 13. Working just the light brown half is where you're at. Alright, is row 13. So what it says to do then is it says to it says to purl one, because we're not doing a rib stitch, we're doing seed stitch. So purl one, knit one 5 times exactly, which is 10, and then it says to wrap and turn. See, right now you're only working your light brown color, okay? And we're going to be kind of doing kind of a magic connect, alright? It's not a perfect connection, but it gets hidden by the tail. Alright, and so if you're thinking, oh, this works for a sock, not exactly. If you wanted to try to do this as a magic toe for a sock, you need to do a paracord cast on. If you want it completely seamless. Alright, so I did my knit. And then I'm going to wrap and turn. So I'm working on this half of the loom on the 12 pegs. Alright. Now I'm on row 14 where it says to purl and knit 4 times. Okay, so you're going to purl and knit your way over. Remember to keeping up with the seed stitch, and as far as I know, I have this written properly because it's a bit of a challenge to keep up with this seed stitch that we're doing right now. But it gives texturing to the front. Okay, 4 times, and then it says to purl 1, and then wrap and turn. Next, it says to knit 1, purl 1 4 times. So that's 8 pegs. So knit 1, purl 1 4 times. I'm not gonna lie, this makes for a challenge. Okay, keeping up with it, but as I said, I'm pretty sure I have it written properly. Alright. So knit 1, purl 1. And then it says to wrap and turn. Okay, then it says to knit 1, purl 1 3 times. So knit 1, purl 1. This video is going to be kind of long. You're going to follow the same process. It's just going to be the opposite side, okay? It's really not going to be that much different. It's just going to be the opposite side. Okay. I figured it would just be easier to work with the white. Okay, we're going to wrap and turn because it says once you do your 3 times, you knit 1. Okay. Wrap and turn. You should have 3 wraps and turns going on right here. Alright, what it says to do now is it says to purl 1, knit 1. 3 times exactly. Knit 1. Wrap and turn. You have 3 wraps and turns on this side now. Okay, now that we've done that, we're on row 16 where it says to purl 1, knit 1 2 times. So you're going to purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, and then purl 1, and then wrap and turn. Alright, then it says to knit 1, purl 1 2 times. So you knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, wrap and turn. Okay, at this point it says you're going to make some feet on row 18. Okay, and this is where you may want to attach a brown, orange or brown color. And it's not going to take much. Right now I'm using my orange, so I'm going to have to take from the outside. Okay, so you want an orange color. You don't need much. Alright, and what you want to do is you want to attach it. And I know you can just wrap and turn, and it's just kind of sitting there. It's okay. Alright. And what you're going to see that it says to do, and it says actually to change to yellow, but what I have in front of me is some orange. So I'm going to use it instead. Orange, yellow, doesn't really matter. Okay, so don't cut your way. You're going to want to pick it right back up. Okay, so what it says to do is it says to take these next 2 stitches. Okay, and you want to have a couple of stitch markers for this. And you want to knit back and forth 10 times. And then you want to bring the original loops back and then knit 2 together 2 times. And then you're going to do the feet in the next 2. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put stitch markers on the first 2 stitches I'm going to keep coming across. Right? And I am going to knit them over. And here we go. Alright, so get my stitch marker away. Okay, so there's row 1, this is row 2, this is row 3, this is row 4, five, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You're going to bring those original loops back. Alright. Then you're going to knit the 2 together 2 times. Alright. And that completes your foot. You're going to repeat this in the very next 2 stitches, and I'm not going to show that because I've showed you once. So you want to go ahead and pause the video and complete the next foot in the next 2 pegs over. And if you're doing this the other way, this will be your first 2, and this will be your next 2. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video and complete your foot over here, and we'll come back and finish up the bottom half. Okay, so I have finished row 18 and I'm starting on row 19. And you'll see that it says that I say to knit 1, purl 1 2 times, and then knit 2 together, and then change colors to light brown again. Okay. So what you're doing is you're starting with the peg you finished with. Alright. So you're going to knit 1, purl 1. Alright, and then knit 1. And then purl 1. And it's up to you, okay? It says to knit 2 together if you don't want to combine that in, but honestly, your starting color is already here. Alright. So now I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to cut my foot color off. Most likely won't need it until the beak. I'm going to tie off my orange. Okay. And I'm going to cut that a little shorter. Okay, now what it says to do on row 20 is to change color to light brown. Now, if you're doing this, you're with the light brown, you're actually doing it the other way, and you've just knitted the 2 together. You're doing the same thing, it's just on the opposite side. Alright? So you just start with the peg that you finished with. You're going to then purl 1, knit 1 2 times. So purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. Then it says to purl 1 and then knit the 2 together. Alright? So you're going to knit the 2 together. Okay. Now You are now on row 21. You're starting with a peg you finished with. Now you're going to purl 1, knit 1, 3 times. So purl 1, knit 1 3 times. And then you're going to purl the 2 together. Knit 1, and then you're going to purl the 2 together. You're continuing with the seed stitch. Alright, so on row 22, you're going to start with the peg you finished with. You're going to start with a knit. So knit 1, purl 1, all the way across. Alright, and you're just going to start with the opposite of what you finished with. Alright. So you see that I'm purling 1, knitting 1, purling 1. That's an oddball. So now I need to knit 1. And then I'm going to be purling those 2 together. Then I know that because my last thing I did was a purl, I'm going to start with a knit. Alright. And so I'm going to knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Knit the 2 together. Then I'm going to start with a purl. So purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit the 2 together. Then I'm going to start with a purl. Purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit the 2 together. Start with a purl. Excuse me. Purl the 2 together. You're going to start with a knit. Purl, knit, purl. Okay, so you're adding them back in and you're continuing with that seed stitch. This is a hard pattern, and in order to keep this in a fairly timely fashion, I'm going to let you finish this. You're continuing the seed stitch as to what the last thing you did was. You're going to do the opposite to start with and work your way over. Okay? So slowly add the wraps and turns back in. Okay, and then we should be ready to start the body, and you will be color chunking with the body if you're doing 2 colors. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and get your wraps and turns back in, and we'll be ready to start the next section. Okay. Okay, so at this point, what it says to do, you're on row 28. It says to knit 1, purl 1 all the way over to where your starting point is. And then you're going to be working, doing this unusual connecting this bottom half to the tail, alright? It's really neat in that there's no sewing involved with the tail. You are closing off the body when you do this next step, okay? And I'm going to explain how that's done. This is one of the more complicated patterns out of the book. I think it's well worth it. Now, if you are doing this in the other color, you will be finishing over here on the opposite side. Not a big deal. Okay, so here is just what I am not sure about. This is to bring your cast on loops onto the light brown side, onto the multicolored brown side, okay? And I'm trying to figure out, unless I'm just knitting tighter. I've done this before. So you're supposed to be able to go in and add these loops over. And I don't know why this isn't working, because I have done this before and it's worked, and it doesn't look like it's going to work this time. I have no idea what that's about. Okay, so I'm going to take and try to do this. I really don't know how I'm gonna do this. I'm guessing I'm using a thinner yarn than I normally use, but the object is to be able to bring these cast-on stitches over, and I've done this before, so I'm not entirely sure why this doesn't look like it's going to work. I'll try to see how far I can get the cast-on loops over. It might pull them more than you would like. It may be a little tighter than you would expect. Okay. What you can do is you can pick up your brown, wherever it is, your multicolored browns, and you can start trying to loosen it up by knitting the two together, and then purl the two together. And what that does is it starts loosening it up so that you can keep adding. Okay, since I'm kind of having to do this a little funky, a little unusually. Okay, so I've kind of done that. Alright, so let's see if I can pull my next one over. And this may be how you have to do it if you've used a yarn that's particularly thin for this. And the thing is, it balances out, and while you may have this gaping hole, it actually balances out, I swear. Okay, so you find your next cast on loop. I'm not going to say it's not going to be hard. You're going to pull that on to the next peg. And this is how to do this if you are using a yarn that is not working with you, okay? If you're using a bigger yarn than what I'm using here, it works fine. So my suggestion is maybe if you're doing this, you want to go with the larger yarn size than you normally would. So you want to find your next cast on loop. And if you've done your, what do they call it, where you go in and you do a hemmed brim. If you're doing a hemmed brim, you know what this is. You know what I'm doing. Bringing a cast on loop back. Okay. I'm doing this one at a time, and sometimes that's how you have to do it. You can't do it all at once. If that's the case, you work with it, okay? It's not impossible. As you can see, I am managing it. Okay, here's your next cast on loop. If you want to go ahead and add that on. If you can get it to stay. Now be careful if you're using a KB loom for this. I don't know that they've changed their plastic up where it's as solid, but the Cindywood looms are much more malleable when it comes to their pegs. But I would say if you're going to use this size gauge, that might I suggest that you do a worsted weight. For some reason this is a DK weight. Okay. So, on to my next cast on. Let me tell you, this is such a pain. Can't believe this happened when I'm filming, but it shows you how you can go alternatively about achieving the problem without having to start all over again with a thicker yarn. And that's the whole idea of it. We're almost to our end, actually. So we've almost closed it off. Geez, getting me trouble in that last one. Alright, there it is. Do not like pulling pegs like that. As I said, Cindy wood looms are really malleable. Okay, there you go. We achieved it. You see it? I did it. There's how you do it. Your bottom is closed off. There's your little feet. There's your tail. Well, I suggest that if you are using a 3/8 inch gauge, that you're using a worsted weight yarn. If you use a worsted weight yarn, the thicker your yarn, the more likely you are to be able to pull those over easier without having to do what I just did. Okay, so what it says to do is you needed to have changed to your multi-brown color, and you wanted to continue with the ribbing of the purl 2 together, knit 2 together, which you would have been over here. So it would have been purl 2 together, knit 2 together, all the way over 6 times. And then what it suggests to do after that is you're going to go back to the side where your light brown is, and it says to knit 1, purl 1 all the way over. And this is where your color chunking is going to start. But you're going to be continuing with the seed stitch up the front. Okay. So you're going to knit 1, purl 1 all the way over in the light brown, and then you're going to do the rib stitch thing on your connection. Alright. Okay. Now you are ready to start heading back in the other direction. Okay, now what it says to do is to do another rib stitch with the multi brown color, so that you're going to knit 1, purl 1 all the way over, continuing your rib stitch. Okay. So purl 1, as you can see, I'm kind of adjusting my tensioning, so it isn't going to be so obvious. Okay. Then it says that you're going to be picking up, and you're going to be, which you're going to be on this side, and that you will start with a knit 1, purl 1 all the way over. Okay. Let's see. What I started with was a knit 1, so I'm going to do a purl 1, knit 1 over here. You just want to keep up with what you got going on. Okay. Purl one, knit one. Okay. But it'll be accurate on the other side. Alright. Now, you should be doing this thing one more time. I don't think so. I think we're switching up. So that was row 30, I think is what I just did. Here we are. Okay, so you're going to continue with that stitching. All right, for row 30. At that point, after that, you're going to be doing just color chunking for quite a few rows, from rows 31 to 48. And that is going to be 17 rows. So I would say probably closer to 18 rows, but row 49 is kind of that. All right, so you're going to be doing the chunk of the body now, and what you're going to be doing is you're going to just be continuing what you've been doing, where you do the rib stitch in the back and the seed stitch on the front, and you're just going to keep going back and forth. That's what it looks like. Make sure. Okay, here. Yeah. It's continuing a rib stitch on the back. So, yeah. So you're just going to keep following the rib stitch on the back and forth. And you're going to keep up with the seed stitch on the front, just like we've been doing. You may have to do it a little different if you're doing one color, but if you're doing color chunking, just keep up. Back and forth, back and forth. And you may need to, I'm going to put a link in the info box below on the color chunking, okay? But you're going to continue with the rib stitch on the tail, and then the seed stitch on the front, and you're going to do that for a total of 17, 18 rows. Okay, I have 17, but row 49 we're going to be taking off these front stitches. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, continue your rib stitch back here, and continue your seed stitch up here. And I need to make an alteration to the pattern. Alright, so pause the video, complete your 17 rows, and we'll come back. Okay, so this is kind of what it should look like. Seed stitch in the front, as you can see. There's your rib stitch in the back. And there's your little feet. Okay. So, at this point, you're done with the body. And if you are working with two colors, you're going to bind off the front half of the body, which is the seed stitch of the body, and then you're going to do your rib stitching on the back. But because we're doing this in the round, I'm going to go ahead and do my back side, and then I'm going to bind off. Because you're working with two colors, it really doesn't matter which side you work first. But know that no matter what, you're going to be binding off the front half, which is the seed stitch half of 12 stitches. So, you're just going to knit one, purl one, all the way around to the seed stitch side, and then you will start your bind off. And then we'll be ready to start the head, which is its own little challenge. And do know that you'll be going and seeking out the bird or feathered wing link below the video so that I am saving time here, because I think at this point this video is already 40 minutes in and I have only just started finishing up the head and the body. Okay, so if you've done your 12 pegs, now you knit 2, toss the bottom loop over, and move over 1. So this is kind of a self-explanatory thing. You knit the next one, move it over, toss the bottom loop over, and then move that over. Now, and once you feel comfortable with this pattern, you can do whatever stitch pattern you want on the front. If you want it more feathered on the back, you can choose to go in and do the crocodile stitch on the back, or you can do the crocodile stitch on the front. This kind of gives you an idea of what you're doing. You can also go ahead and choose to just knit everything, but I wanted to create some texturing with this pattern, so it's completely up to you how you want to do it. This is just a guide. You can change it, add to it, do more with it if you so choose. Okay, your last one is right here. Alright. And what you can do is just place that last stitch onto there. So, there you have it. The front half of your body is done. Here you go. You can see how that's working, and there's a little bottom area. Now, if you find you had to do like I did, I'll show you how to go in and tighten up that section and polish it off a little bit better and tack that extra yarn out if you'd like. Okay, so at this point, what you're doing is you're going to be knit and purl over, and you're going to wrap and turn the last peg. And this is, instead of keeping up with your seed stitch at this point, you're going to keep up with your rib stitch while doing a wrap and turn decreasing down. Okay. So you knit and purl your way over, and then you're going to wrap and turn that last stitch. There's your knit. There's your last stitch. You're going to wrap and turn. So what you're doing is you're creating a curvature to the back of the head, because right now you're working on the head. So I finished with a knit, so I need to remember that I'm starting back with the knit. Okay, so I'm going to knit purl my way over to the last peg over there. Alright, because we've already done the wrap and turn knit purl section before, I'm not going to be as showing you completely how to do this, because this is a little bit more self-explanatory. You don't have knits and purls changing up right now. Okay. You can practically put stitch markers on to help you keep up with it. It's a lot easier than the seed stitch. Okay, so we're here at our last stitch. We're going to wrap and turn, and then we're going to start with a purl and knit your way over. Okay, then you're going to wrap and turn the previous peg to that. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and get this wrap and turn area done. You're going down to not as far, so you're going to go down to 6 stitches, okay, between wraps and turns, so you know. Alright, you wrap and turn. Now, keep in mind, if you're doing this the other way, where you're working with your browns rather than this way, your section is going to be different. It's going to be the opposite. You just need to keep up with what your knits and purls have been. And that's, you probably already had it marked. Okay, so it's going to be the opposite of what we're doing here. You're probably going to have started over here rather than over here. Okay, and if you ever need to know whether you're on a knit or a purl, let me explain. If it looks like it'd be a purl, that's a knit. If it looks like it'd be a knit, it's a purl. So I need to knit on this one. So if you're looking inside the loom, not this way, inside the loom, if you ever want to know where you're at, this is a knit and this is a purl. Normally when you're looking on this side, you know that that's the knit and that's the purl. It looks the opposite on the inside. So if you ever want to know where you're at, if it looks like a knit, that's purl. If it looks like a purl, that's knit. Okay? So go ahead and pause the video and get your wraps and turns down to 6. And then when we come back, we'll be increasing out. And then it says we'll be starting on the eye area. Okay? Okay. So, as you can see, you have 3 wraps and turns, 3 wraps and turns, 6 stitches in between, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and your working yarn is over here. If you are doing the colored version, then you're probably going to be the opposite side. It still works the same, okay? At this point, we're not going to be doing a rib stitching anymore. We're going to be switching over. We're going to start doing just a straight out knit stitch, okay? So starting with the peg you finished with, you're going to knit 6. And then you're going to knit 2 together, which this is row 56, okay? And you're going to work your way back, and you're going to knit 7 and knit 2 together until you have no more wraps and turns. You're going to continue this process until you have no more wraps and turns, okay? So I'm going to tell you to pause the video and complete that much, and then we'll be ready to start the next section of the owl, which will include doing your eye area, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and get your wraps and turns added back in, and then we will be starting on the eye area. So actually, when we're to the eye area, we are not that far from, we're more than a third done at this point. So you have a fourth of the way to go. We're really not that far from done, okay? Okay, so we've added everything back in, and what you've done is you've created an angle for the head to start bending so that you're completing off where you can sew the face down to the bottom of the body where you did your bind off. Okay, so we are on the eye area, and if you're doing the colored version, you want to change up to a light brown, and you're going to, that's going to be row 62. All right, and you will probably be on the opposite side, but again, it works exactly the same.
okay, when you're doing the eye area. It says to change to the light brown color, and it says to E-wrap cast on 9 pegs. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Now, what it says to do is to knit rows 63 through 65. Alright. And all you're doing is knitting those 9 pegs for approximately 3 rows. Okay. Probably should clarify you're knitting 9 for 3. I'll put a clarification on the pattern. Okay, so you're knitting the 9 back and forth for 3 rows. So here's row 1. And here is row 2. Alright. So basically when I start an eye area, I'm just working this one section, okay, of 9 pegs. And this is row 3, okay. Now, on row 3, that should be row 66, you are going to be doing kind of an internal decrease on those 9 stitches. Okay, so you're going to basically skip this first one. So you can knit that first one, and then it says to decrease, knit 2 together 3 times. So you're going to move that over, knit the 2 together, 1, and then you're going to move this over, knit the 2 together, 2, move this over, knit the 2 together, 3, and then it says to knit 2. Now, because we don't want any loose gaps, we need to lift everything up and put it side by side. All right. So you put them all side by side, and you're going to need to tighten those stitches. What this does is it creates a round eye area. Okay, now you have to go in and tighten those stitches. So. Alright. Now, the next thing that you do is you knit for another 3 rows, back and forth. So here is row 1. Two, 3. Okay, then it says to, on row 70, it says to knit 1. It says to decrease 2 times. You knit the 2 stitches together. There's 1, and there's 2. Then knit 1. Okay, and then you're just going to bring all those stitches together, and you're going to tighten it. Okay. Then you're going to knit for 3 more rows. Okay. And then you're going to decrease twice. And if you don't want to have to move anything around, you can just decrease them in. And then you're going to knit a row. You're going to snip a short end. And you're just going to bind off. And there is your little eye area that we've just completed. It's like a little cone. Okay. Now you're going to do a slip stitch. Snug that up. And you're going to work the other eye area, but you're going to be going back to your multi-brown color, and you're going to knit 12, and then you're going to be repeating your eye area that we just did, and it's not going to be any different on the other side. You're going to do the same process. Okay, so you knit your way around, and then it says to E-wrap 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, knit for 3 rows, and then knit 1, decrease 3 times, and knit 2 over here at the end. Okay, it's just going to be on the opposite side. So you follow the same process that we just did over here. So go ahead and pause the video and complete your other eye area, and then we should be ready to start the top of the head. Okay. So pause the video and get that much done. Okay, so as you can see, here's your eye area. And now we're at the top of the head, and it says to change back to your multi-brown color, and of course I'm just doing white. And then it says you're just going to knit 12 and cast on 6. You may be on the opposite side, it doesn't really much matter. Just choose a side and start on it because you're just going to be doing the same thing on the other side, okay? So you knit for 12, and then you're going to cast on 6, and then it says then you're going to knit for 18, and then you're going to cast on 6, okay? And then it says you're going to knit all 24 stitches for 2 rows, okay? Alright, so there's my 12. And I'm just going to ear cast on 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright. And then what I want you to know is this is your new starting and ending point is over here. If you want to put a stitch marker there, go ahead. Alright? So you don't cross over. So you're going to knit your way around, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side, and then you're going to knit for 2 rows. And then the decreasing starts. Okay, and then cast on 6. Right, and at this point you are going to knit for 2 rows. You're going to knit around and knit your way back. Right, and then we'll be ready to start on row 80, and that's where you start. You're doing your decrease, and it's not that bad. I'll explain how to do it. Okay, let's go ahead and pause the video and complete 1, 2. You should end back up over here. Do not connect these sides, okay? Let's pause the video and knit 2 rows. When we come back, I'll show you how to start doing your decrease. Okay, now we're on row 80. What it says is to decrease, and then it says to knit so many and decrease. So you're decreasing the ends. The best thing to do is go ahead and move those end stitches over one to go ahead and decrease. And so what you do once you do that, you knit the 2 stitches together and then knit your way around. And you're going to decrease like this for every single row until you're down to 8 stitches. Okay, so you want to get down to 8 stitches, and you're decreasing every single row on the ends only. Okay, so I'll knit my way around, and then I'll show you how to decrease again so that you know you're doing it every single row. Knit the 2 together. Okay, decrease on the end and decrease on the end. And then you just knit the 2 together and knit your way around. Continue this process until you are down to 8 stitches left. Then we're going to be working on the beak. So go ahead and pause the video and get that much done, and we'll work on the beak. Okay, as you can see, I have decreased down to 8 stitches, and this is generally what you should have. Okay. And so we are to the beak. And this is where it says to change color to black. This is how I do it. I go ahead and tile my new color. Push that down as far as I can. Cut the old color. Enough to do a half knot around it. Around the new color. And then you're going to try and get that knot as close to the base as possible. Pull to give resistance. This is called a magic knot, or a fisherman's knot if you want to go real technical with it. Loosen up your stitches. Alright. Now it says that you're going to knit rows 88 through 94. Okay. So you are going to knit for 6 rows. Okay. Then you're going to start your decreasing method. Alright. So you're going to knit for 6 rows. So here's row 1. So go ahead and pause the video and knit for 6 rows. And then we'll come back and we'll do row 95. Okay, I've done my 6 rows and I'm on row 95, and you're going to be decreasing the ends. And then you're going to knit the 2 together and then knit your way over. And then you're going to knit for 3 rows. You're going to decrease again. As you can see, a pattern developing here. Okay, so you're going to knit for 3 rows. Then you're going to decrease again. Then you're going to knit 3 rows again. You're going to decrease again. You're going to knit 1 row. Then you're going to bind off. Make sure you cut you an extra long tail to be able to sew up your beak. And at this point, you're done with the bird itself. You'll need to go in and follow the bird wing video and make you 2 wings to put with it. We are now to the most complicated spot, which is sewing up. And this is what it should look like. Okay. Kind of a big mess. Alright. Now, I will try to show the most complicated spot when it comes to sewing this up. What I usually say to do is to sew up the beak. Okay. So the beak is going to get sewn up first. That's pretty self-explanatory. Then you always need to fold your sides down like this, where it lines up with the base. Okay. And I actually explain this in the book. So you sew your beak up first, then you take and fold those sides down, even with that connection there. Alright. And if you want to try to go a little further, you can, but it's mostly even with that connection. Alright. And then this is where the challenge usually comes in, is where you go to actually sew the eyeball in to match everything up. Okay. But before you can sew the eyes in, you have to go in and actually stuff the body. Okay. What I'm going to tell you to do is go ahead and sew up the beak. Take this, fold it in half, and sew it down, including that. So, sew up the beak, fold that, sew it down both sides. When we come back, I'm going to show you how to do the eye area. And you'll want to go ahead and stuff. Now you may need to go in and tighten up these areas. It's up to you. You can leave it as is if it doesn't bother you. That's your connected area here. Okay. But you'll definitely want to go ahead and stuff. So when we come back, your body needs to be stuffed. The beak needs to be sewn up, and these sections needs to be folded down in half and sewn up. Okay, go ahead and find the link below for the wings. You'll need to sew those on later. All right, and then we will be ready to actually sew our eye areas down and the head, the top of the head, together with the bottom. Okay. Okay, as you can see, I have stuffed the body. I have sewn that folded area down in my beak. I have taken my ends, my tails from the tips, and tied them to what was left of my beak. So those are kind of in place, which will make it easier to deal with. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to sew, find as much to the edge as possible, and I want to find the line I sewed down here, and I want to sew it right up to that edge. Okay, and what that's going to do is do the eye area. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually go in and be sewing that up. Okay, so we're going to sew that together, and you're going to try to find the edge, and you're going to sew it all the way down here. Okay, and then when you get to here, you're going to sew your way down here. Okay, and then you still have this opening. What you'll want to do then is start sewing this to here, and I'll show where that's done. But you want to go in and sew the base here and here. Okay, so you just keep sewing that up, and then you sew this side down, and then when we come back, we should be dealing with starting to add the head, this part, to the body. Okay, and once you actually sew this down, you can go ahead and kind of do a general placement and see where you want to add the eyes. Because this is so small, I'm not likely to do the safety eyes. But if you're doing a larger version, you want to find somewhere in here. Usually it's in here that I add the eyes, and you want to add the safety eyes before you stuff. Alright, and I am going to do an eye cinching thing with this, so you know. Okay, so I am going to go in and sew this up, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next section to sew up. Okay, and I'm trying to do this so you're not having to make a whole bunch of cuts and tie downs and cuts and tie downs, because the more you have, the more it's likely to unravel with washings and that kind of thing. So I always try to avoid too many tie-offs and cut-ins and that kind of thing. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and sew those up, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we have those sewn up, and now what we want to do is we want to start sewing the bottom half down and around. Okay, and this isn't an exact. Okay, you just kind of have to work your way around in a more curved line to this. Okay, so you're going to sew this up. I can quit catching every single thing trying to sew this up. It's a problem when you work with long tails, but I don't like a whole lot of tying off and attaching. Okay, so at this point, you're really wanting to try and leave yourself space to stuff your head. Now, in the book, I left this bottom half as the last half to be able to stuff through and sew down. And you can, or you can go ahead and sew that and leave this space right here to go in and sew down as well. So it's entirely up to you what you would want to do. I'm going to leave this space open right here to actually go in and stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew this all the way around and leave that room in there to stuff. And what you'll see is you already start seeing the face showing up. Okay. And then when you stuff it, you really notice it. Okay. So go ahead and pause the video and finish sewing this up. And then what you want to do is go ahead and stuff your head through your hole. You can sew at that center section first and then leave this as your last hole to sew up. It's entirely up to you. It's a choice. I always like to give more options, but you'll definitely want to go ahead and stuff your head and that kind of thing. Do remember that stuffing is kind of an art form unto itself. It's the decision on how to make sure you're not stuffing too much, whether you're stuffing enough. You also want to make sure you pack down your stuffing so it's doing its thing and getting settled. That's another thing that happens. So, and trust me, I'm going to try to work this over here so I'm still not cutting and retying off. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pause my video, go ahead and stuff the head and get this last bit prepped, and then we can sew our beak down, okay? Okay, I've stuffed my head. Now, I'm going to send this needle through to start sewing up the front. Okay, again, I really don't like having a lot of cut and retie areas because it just leaves the possibility that you will have seams coming undone and have to be sewn up again and that kind of thing. I've never been one to be into that kind of thing. Now, if you get to a point where you're down to about here and you feel like it's not stuffed enough, but do know owl faces tend to be kind of flat, so it's okay if it's a little flat looking. Okay. And done. Okay. At this point, here is your face now. Here is the thing. Now, I decided to do a snow owl, so to speak. Okay. Now, if you're doing this and you don't want the beak to be quite so large, because I'm going to be folding it back onto itself. Okay. But now, if you did the horned owl version, this is fine. If you did the snow owl version, you may want to go in and gather up those sections and kind of tack them down to have a more rounded edge. Okay, so I'm going to flatten that out. Go in and tack that down to start giving that roundy edge. Okay, so what I can do is go in and grab that corner, okay, and send it back up through to grab that tip so it doesn't move around all over the place. The reason for a long tail. Okay. I'm going to send that through, and I'm going to go through over here because I've done the snow owl version, and I'm going to go in and gather this up so that it has a more rounded edge. So you'll find that I'm going to gather that up and send it through the head over here to do the same thing. Okay. Now I want to get my eyes more indented. So I'm going to go in and send the needle through the eye area that I want. I'm gathering that up. Okay, I'm going to send that back through. Send it over to the other eye area that I want. Try to get it as close to it as possible. And the other thing you can do if you want to give yourself a little bit more dimension on the head is you can go in and do a little cinching in the way that you can go back to the center of the head somewhere in here and kind of add a little extra layer to it. Okay, and you send it right back through there and send it up through the eye area here. And what you'll find that it does is it starts to get more of the head defined. Okay, is all you're doing here. You're just going to define that head. Okay. And you're really going in and defining that eye area because you're going to put in big eyes, most likely. Okay. And then when you are done with that, you can send it through the body. Got it attaching to a few things. Okay. Send it through the body. And there you have it. Now, you'll want to go in and you'll want to make some wings to add some definition to the side. And then you're going to sew those wings on. Okay, so you'll sew those wings on, and then you will glue in your eyes. Nice big golden eyes is what I'm going to go for. Okay, and then you will have successfully made your owl. Okay, now again, you can go in and you can make your beak smaller. You can start later and maybe not do as many rows. You don't have to do 10 rows or however many. You can do less to make the beak shorter. It's entirely up to you how you want to do that, okay? But you'll want to go in the info box below and you're going to want to find the bird wing link, and you're going to want to make you 2 wings. You're going to sew them on the side, and that'll add dimension to it. That is how you go in and make you a owl from my book. Okay?